Clears, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talk about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Booyah! Just like that, we are back on the air with a click of the button. We are live. We are in the house. You're no longer listening to us talking about what the Indians may do before the trade deadline. We're not talking about what might happen when the Browns start training camp. Nope. We're talking about all the things that have happened because we're live. We're back in the saddle again. Ooh, it feels good. I was just texting my boy Dan Wismar, who's going to join us here a little bit later today from Everybody Hates Cleveland and the Cleveland fan. I said, I missed you, man. I missed all of this thing here. It's been over a week since we've been live in the studio, and we've got a couple of episodes coming up here, and then we've got to do that again. We've got another long weekend next weekend, so there'll be a stretch from next Wednesday until the Wednesday after that, again without shows. But we'll be here today. We'll be here Friday, Monday, Wednesday. So we've got a run of shows here before one more week off there. Unfortunately, when I've got the long 3 and 4 day weekends, that's the way it's going to be. And whoo-wee, was this a long 4-day weekend here this past weekend that I just went through. And I got a chance to meet many of you guys out there, at least a dozen of you guys over the couple of towns that I was in. We'll get into that in a minute. What a great weekend it's been, although I am battered, bruised, and beaten, but not broken, although they came close. They can't break me, doggone it. And here we go, ready to talk some Tribe after the deadline. Who's left on this team? All weekend long, people have been coming up to me all weekend at the shows that I worked, and Cleveland sports fans or some of you guys come up to me and talk to me. Hey, what's up with the Tribe? Hey, what's up with this? Hey, what happened over the weekend with that? And I was so, you get into zombie on the road mode where you're just making it from town. I did 1,200 miles over the course of less than 72 hours there, and that's not including the actual wrestling and all of the things that come with it. That's just the travel alone. So you get in zombie mode there where you're just lucky to get to the gym, get to the town, get some food in your stomach, and get in the ring. So people are like, hey, J-Rocc, did you hear about Billy Wynn? Hey, did you hear about the Indians? What's going on? I'm like, man, I don't know. You tell me. So today, Dan Wismar and I are going to catch up. Hell, he'll be catching me up as much as I'll be catching you up, as I spent all the last 48 hours or so filling in the gaps and catching myself up on everything with all of that stuff. But it's been a lot of fun, you guys. Let's rock and roll. Phones are already ringing. I'm ready to go. We'll talk a bit about the weekend that I had, and then we'll get rolling with the Sports Fix. So welcome in, you guys. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, the Big Daddy on the microphone, all of those things and then some. That's what you can call me as long as you call me. Happy to be here. Happy to have you guys here with me each and every day when we get to blessed to do the Sports Fix thing right here across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe you're listening live at noon right here on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio app, digital apps, mobile apps worldwide. Maybe you're live on Spreaker.com, on Mixler, listening on their digital apps as well. Perhaps you're one of the many that listen right off our home base, thesportsfix.net, your one-stop shop for everything sports fix necessary in Cleveland sports and all of that. Bookmark it if you haven't. It's got the live show automatically broadcast. It's got the replays. It's got every way for you to listen to it and do the thing. thesportsfix.net. Make sure you bookmark it today. Plus, it's got all of our great advertisers and all the people that help make this show possible for you guys to listen free of charge. And you know what? I'll tell you what, man, that's something not to be taken for granted, you guys. When I think about it even, is that there's so many, there's a glut of different services and podcasts and platforms and shows, and some of them are premium services. Some of these you pay for, and the Sports Fix here, rocking and rolling, minimum 3 days a week. Some days, most weeks, 5 days a week. We're here 2 hours live doing the thing each and every day. No charge, right there every day. And the way we're able to keep it free, it's very simple. It's with the help of the people that help support this show. We don't ask for anything from anybody, baby, except that you check us out and check out the people that help make the Sports Fix possible, you guys. Welcome in as well, all of you that listen on digital delay 24/7, thousands of you around the world. Hell, I got more examples of that this weekend when I'm in Chicago and I'm in Dayton, and last week I'm in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. People coming up to me and saying, hey, J-Rocc, I was listening to the show this week, and I think this, and I think that. It's great. Many of you listen to the show on digital delay 24 hours a day on time zones and area codes everywhere on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, on CarPlay, on all of the different podcasts and services and formats and all the different ways that you feed, subscribe, download, do the thing, get your fix, as we like to call it. Thank you so much for doing it. However you do, each and every day, supporting the show, being a part of the show, and hey, like I just said, be a part of the show. I've already got calls in the queue. 216-539-7535, the number to call. 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, always the easiest way, 24 hours a day to be in touch. Facebook.com/thesportsfix, or you can find me personally on Facebook, Jerry Myers, J-Rocc. Either one pops me up. I'm that big, bald, good-looking, ruggedly handsome mamma jamma you'll find there. Or tweet with us at, I'm just having some fun, tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. That's The Sports Fix CLE, all one word on Twitter. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Real quick, before I go to the phones, you guys talked about this weekend in Chicago Friday night, back here in Cleveland at All Pro Freight Stadium, out there for the Lake Erie Crushers in Avon on Saturday, down in Dayton at the Hera Arena last weekend on Sunday. What an incredible weekend it was. Not only did I get a chance to catch up with many of you guys, as I said, over a dozen different listeners over the three towns came up to me, new people that I hadn't met before, which is always a lot of fun. I mean, love getting a chance to meet up. Speaking of that, separate from this weekend, Anthony, a listener from Colorado Springs, Colorado, who hasn't been home in 15 years. He's from Cleveland. He's been gone in the service. He's been traveling the country. Landed in Colorado. He was in 15 years. Comes back home, hits me up. I just got a chance to run into him randomly yesterday and say hi, but from across the country, listening to the Sports Fix, comes back home for the first time in a decade and a half. Anthony from Colorado, it was good to catch up with you as well. Thanks to all of you guys. I love it. You guys see the biggest smile on my face when you come up to me and you start talking Sports Fix with me at the wrestling shows, because I'm like, hey, all right, man. I had a lot of that going on this weekend. What a great weekend it was. I was very fortunate. First off, Chicago, great town. You guys can take your traffic and you can stick it where the sun don't shine. I have never, ever encouraged or encountered traffic as miserably awful as what I did in Chicago. I ended up stuck, which turned out to be a very blessed situation. I ended up stuck in a car, two guys in traffic for over 2 hours in downtown Chicago. The other guy was, you may have heard of him, Brett the Hitman Hart. Him and I were stuck in traffic for 2 hours trying to travel across Chicago together on Friday. So it was great for me. I got the opportunity to sit there and talk with Brett and kick off the weekend. I'll tell you what, while I'm bringing it up, I will forever have the distinction of knowing exactly where I was when I found out that Roddy Piper passed away. I was in a car with Bret the Hitman Hart in Chicago when his phone rang. He picked up his phone, and when he put it down, he turned to me and he said, "Jerry, wow, Roddy Piper just died." And just like that, that was how I got the news that Roddy Piper, one of the most legendary wrestlers of all time, just entertainers of all time, passed away last Friday, suddenly at the age of 61. And, of course, Bret and Roddy Piper were very, very, very close family friends. They were basically cousins. They called each other cousin. And so Bret was pretty tore up, and I was glad to be able to, at least he wasn't alone. He had somebody, we were able to talk, and his phone was just blowing up at that point with the wrestling world reaching out to him. But an interesting start to the weekend for sure. And Bret ended up going into the ring that evening and all weekend long and talking to the fans about Roddy Piper and at the shows. It was really great. And I got to spend the majority of the weekend traveling the roads up and down with Bret Hart. Let me tell you something. That's one of the true greats. I mean, that's not just, you heard of this guy. That's one of the greats of the greats. And to be able to sit a ride to Dayton with Bret the Hitman Hart, I mean, just sit there and listen to him teach you and talk to you about the business and tell stories. Amazing times here. But yeah, I mean, I'll never forget, Bret will never forget where when we found out the news of Roddy Piper, we were stuck in bumper to bumper traffic in Chicago there that Friday afternoon. But the weekend started there. Great weekend of shows. I mean, unbelievable stuff that we got into. Traveled the world. I am beat up from top to bottom, head to toe. You can definitely count that one up here, but it's all good. It's what we do. It was so much fun. I thank you guys for coming out and being a part of it, and I cannot wait to do it again. I'm in Erie this weekend. I've got a Pennsylvania tour coming up, a 3-day tour coming up 2 weeks from now. Lots of stuff still to come. The summer of J-Rocc rolls on, but I thank you guys for joining us again, for coming out to see it, and I'll tell you, I can tell you so many stories. If you check out my Facebook, it's loaded with pictures from this weekend. Saturday, I think there was 1,200 or so of you guys that came out to the All-Pro Freight Stadium there and got to see the Cleveland Mafia in action, and a great wrestling card out there. That baseball stadium show is always fun. This was the second year in a row that they did that. So thanks to you guys that came out to see all of it all weekend long, and everybody that was a part of it. It was definitely some pretty awesome stuff, and an interesting weekend that I will most definitely beaten, bruised from head to toe, 1,200 miles. I think I was hit with a dozen chairs. A couple of tables were thrown at me. I was thrown all over from pillar to post, and I love every second of it. Thank you guys for once again for being a part of it with us here and all of that, and I look forward to doing it again. Now we're doing the Sports Fix thing. We're rocking and roll. Matter of fact, I'm done talking for now. I'm going to let the next words come from one of you guys. I'm going to crack the phone lines. We're going to break it open right here. Welcome back into the Sports Fix. Caller, you're first up in the air. What's going on? Who's this and where you calling from?
Big Daddy, this is Big Bob from Bristol, Connecticut. You sound
Big
good.
Bob, what's
you
up, my man?
You sound good.
Well, I didn't have a voice for the first couple of days this week, but I'm good now. So what's happening, Bob?
Yeah, how many chairs you break?
I didn't break any. I had a few broke over my head here and there, but it's all good. It is all good. It was a lot of fun. And, man, I hope to get up your way. You're what, Connecticut? I hope to get up your way sometime
baby.
soon, Big Bob.
Oh, you got to come up, man. Hey, listen, I'm going to be your tag team partner.
Hey, I'll hold you to that, man. These guys are always looking
your tag team partner, baby.
I need some help everywhere I go. So now I know
Absolutely.
Big Bob's got my back in Connecticut. What's happening, Big Bob? What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk our young Indians. Man, are we pitching our butts off. We're playing some unbelievable games. I mean, we're even looking good when we're losing.
They got even younger. Well, that's the thing. The pitching hasn't been the problem all season. And actually, what we've seen this weekend just continues to make me frustrated because you're just going to waste an unbelievable season from some unbelievable pitching. I mean, you look at what Carlos Carrasco did yesterday. Yeah, all you people, by the way, that were talking, listen, there's a reason that you don't trade Carlos Carrasco, and I'm hoping that people have seen it, man. I mean,
Thank you.
That guy, look at what he did yesterday. Look what he's done his last two starts out there, and I mean, what did he do yesterday? He did the first 11 and the last 16. I mean, he was getting better as that game was going on there. Gives you 9 innings there, just 1 hit through 9 innings. I mean, obviously, the Angels did a good job as well, but the Indians' offense has stunk all season, so that's nowhere near as much of a surprise. Last 2 starts, Carrasco, 18 innings, just 2 hits allowed, and the rotation, I think we've said this before this season, but in the last 8 games, the Indian starters have a 1.29 ERA. They've only given up 12 earned runs in over 63 innings pitched by the starters.
Absolutely.
And once again, guess what? But here's the thing, Bob. Guess what? All of that I just said, they're worse positioning-wise than the last time I cracked the mic and came. I cracked the mic last week for the last episode of The Fix before I went on my break. And they were 5.5 games out of the wild card, and they were 6 games or 5 or 6 games under 500. Now we cracked the mic today. They are 8 games under 500 and 6 games, I believe, back out of the wild card and buried in the division. So, we haven't even talked. Obviously, Dan and I will get into the changes. They moved some guys out. They got even young. You talk about those young Indians, Bob. They got even younger at the trade deadline because they got rid of Moss. They got rid of Zipchinski. Who else did they move out? They moved out Murphy as well. So cleared out some room there for some of the more of the young Indians to come up and play. But, I mean, this is what you're going to see the rest of the season. You're going to see a team that is going to pitch well all season long. And the games where the other team scores 1 or 2 runs, the Indians will win. And the games where they don't, they won't, because this offense is not going to magically fix itself. I do believe – Mike Brandenberry and I don't agree on this. I believe that they can still make a run, finish a little bit above 500 with some pride. He thinks that I'm crazy. He doesn't think this team even has a chance now to hit 500. So they're going to pitch. But, I mean, clearly this lineup is just – it's going to continue to be – up and down, and this team is going to continue to be win 2, lose 3, win 3, lose 2, back and forth, up and down.
I agree with you. We're going to make the playoffs this year.
Oh no, I didn't say that, Bob. I'm not there.
Despite the lackluster offense, the offense is going to find its way a little bit here. And
here's the thing, though, Bob.
Those guys on the bench, believe me, they're probably going nuts, those position players, saying, holy cripe, we can't even give a run here or run there to help our unbelievably wonderful starting pitching out. Things are going to gel. We haven't even hit a winning streak yet this year.
That's the thing,
J-Rocc.
Bob, is that
we haven't even gotten on a roll for an 8 or 9 or 10 game win streak. We're going to hit it.
That's my worry.
We're going to hit it.
That's the problem, is that you have not yet had any type of sustained run of success, and at 110 or whatever, however many games into the season, to me, it becomes hard to believe that run is going to come. I'm not saying – I believe that they'll finish 500. I believe that they can finish 500. I do believe that you're going way too far to expect more, and I'll tell you why. It's not just the Indians anymore. They have – every team in front of them, and it's one thing if you're trying to jump over 1 or 2 teams. You've got to jump over 10 teams, and besides, they would have to just win 8-10 games in a row first before we're even talking about that, and unfortunately, they'll come back home eventually, and they don't win games at home this year. Bob, I am the ultimate optimist, just like you, and I believe that the Indians can finish 500. They're 8 games under 500. If they finish 500 at this point, I would be happy with the finish because of where they're at right now. But come on, Bob, for them to make the playoffs, and please don't you guys take this as me being negative, but for them to make the playoffs, they literally would have to win more than 2/3 of the games that they have left. They'd have to win 66% or better of the games that they have left. Now, right now, they've only won 40% of their games. So what in the world can make anybody believe it's? And that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying this negative, but you would be truly, truly wishing on a star. And that's what it'll take. If the Indians are going to go on a run to make the playoffs, they'd have to literally win 30 of their next 40 games. And for a team that can't win 3 out of 4, that's impossible. As much as I believe they have great pitching, this team should be a playoff team with the pitching that they have, and that's what makes it so frustrating.
Absolutely,
Bob. It's so disappointing.
And you know something? I'm like you too, Jerry. They're going to do it because there was no chirping on that bench or clubhouse. These young Indians know that it's not over yet. It really isn't over. They know that they haven't been performing, like I said, offensively.
But here's the thing, Bob.
They're not going to take it laying down. I'm telling you. And the reason why they're not going to do it is because there's no screaming or yelling in the clubhouse.
Well, that's part of the problem.
They know what they have to do. They're playing as a team. They're going to do it. These young Indians are going to do it.
I hope you're right, Bob.
The hitting, despite not having a regular position players, Gomes being out for the injuries. These young Indians are this year they're going to be destined another 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road. As long as they keep this team intact, they have to keep these young pitchers. They have to keep the young players that we have, and we just got to keep using that farm system. Bring up one or two, send down one or two. Look at McAllister. Look at the job he's doing out of the pen. I mean,
I love you, man. Bob, is Connecticut one of those states where they legalized marijuana? I'm just curious, man. 'Cause whatever you're smoking on, I want to get some of it over here. I just love
the team. I love these young Indians, man.
I know you do, Bob.
And the staff.
Listen,
I'm a pitching person. I just love to see these games. I mean, and even those 2 games that we lost out in Oakland 2-1, just the pitch. I mean, everybody looked fabulous, but
except the offense. The offense. That's the problem,
well,
man.
I'll tell you what. You need the pitching and the defense and the speed. You know what I mean? Then we'll get that offense. Believe me, pitching and
Bob,
speed is everything.
Bob, I'm
we
with
have
you,
the offense.
Man.
They just haven't hit when we need that big hit.
They just haven't hit yet. I'm with you, but at 112 games in or however much it is, you got to wonder when they're going to start. Now, here's the problem. Even if you want to hold out hope that a run was coming for the offense,
I'm not. I'm just like I said. I'm just waiting for that big.
But they just lost.
Damn 8, 9, 10 game winning streak, then maybe lose a game and then hit another 7 or 8 or 9
that
games.
would be nice.
We haven't done that,
and
we're going to do that. You think these young Indians are going to go away without having a nice big win streak? No way.
I hope you're right. Most definitely. That's what they're going to need to even get to 500. Here's the bigger thing that we haven't touched on, and when I go to the break here, I'll get Dan in and we'll pick up there, is they just lost the best offensive piece that they've got on top of everything else. Like the offense wasn't struggling enough. You just lose Jason Kipnis on top of that, man.
I know, Captain Kip. I know, and I'll tell you, we're still going to do it.
All right, Bob. Hey, we need Bob. We need guys like you. I need guys like you to reinvigorate my optimism here.
J-Rocc, I've been a Cleveland Indian fan, like I said, and Brown fan all my life here in Connecticut.
I know.
I've been bombarded by Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, Giants, Patriot fans. I mean, Philly fans. But I love it. Big Bob is always true to my Cleveland, baby.
I love it,
always.
Big Bob. Thanks
and
for the call, my friend. What's up?
For the next 6 to 10 years, we're going to have the best pitching staff in baseball. We're going to have the best pitching staff in baseball. I just want Terry to get this team to start running more, stealing bases, and bunting. Got to start doing the little things a little bit better.
Bob, let me interrupt you there because you set me up for where I'm going to go with Dan Wismar because you brought up Terry Francona. If they don't go on one of those 10, 15 game runs that you're talking about there, or 8 to 10, lose a game, win another 8 to 10, there will be no Terry Francona because that is something that I'm very worried about too, and I'll tell you why. Because if the Tigers, and I'm going to get into this with Dan Wismar, if the Tigers, the dominant team in our division, if they're going to move out Dombrowski, if they're going to clear out their general manager, if you don't think that the Indians front office is on a hot seat right now, that seat just got red hot with what the Tigers did. And my thing that I'm going to say is I want the front office to go. My problem is if they go, Francona will be 2 steps behind them because he's got it built into his contract that he can take a walk if you get rid of his dudes in the front office. And my feeling is that they're all going to go together if they go, and that means that you lose a good manager to get rid of a front office, which, hey,
right.
There's nothing we can do about that, but if they don't go on a run, Terry Francona won't be a part of the future, and that stinks because I love Terry Francona.
Absolutely, and it's not, and like I've been saying all along and telling everybody, I mean, we don't have one manager in that dugout. We have 3. Mills was a manager, and as far as I'm concerned, Sandy Alomar can manage anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But where we are right now and where we're going, I don't even think, now this is me talk, I can't believe it, I wouldn't even touch any of those front office people either. I mean, because to me, we're going to be taking off today. We're going to be taking off today, and I'm telling you that. Just because Dombrowski is gone and all this other stuff, he was in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? And I hope they're not getting any grander ideas about getting him or this or that. That's a Detroit man. He did his thing in Detroit. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do all this stuff in Cleveland.
No. You missed my point. It has nothing to do with bringing in the guy from Detroit. My point is that a general manager who has won championships and divisions and owned this thing for how long now got shown the door. And if he's getting shown the door, then it's time for the Dolans to wake up their front office. But the problem is that when you do that, you're going to lose Terry Francona with it. Bob, I got to go. Thank you very much for the call.
You got it, J-Rocc. Okay, love it, man. Love Cleveland, baby. Let's go, Young Indians.
Let's go, Young Indians. My man, Big Bob. Like I said, I didn't know that Connecticut had legalized the Mary Jane for medicinal purposes, but apparently they have. And Big Bob has opened himself a big old bag of Wheatios here, Wheatios for breakfast. But hey, I'm just kidding. I love the optimism, and hey, I was the Team of Destiny guy last year too. If this team could get out of its own way, I'd be a Team of Destiny guy again this year too, because they got the pitching that you live for. I'm telling you, the early 90s Indians would have had this pitching. They'd have been a dynasty. And again, right now, I just want to see them go on a run so they can finish 500-ish or so and get a good feeling coming out of this season. Start figuring out what you're going to do for next year. This offseason is going to be crucial because and I think, Bob, the one mistake he's making is the mistake, and Mike Brandenburg brought this up, is projecting that this pitching is just going to be there automatically for the next 5 or 6 years, because that's not a guarantee. Very quick. Look how quick that depth, until they found Cody Anderson. Look how quick that pitching depth went away when we got through some injuries here at the beginning part of this year in spring training. So a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's get the break. Let's get the news. Let's get the man, Dan Wismar, in on the conversation. We'll talk about the Indians. They made some moves at the deadline while I was gone. We'll talk about the new tribe, Carrasco, Kipnis, talking some Browns camp. Finally, some actual football, not some speculation, some actual stuff to talk about. We'll let Dan catch you and me up on Billy Wynn, on Johnny Football, on Terrell Pryor. I hear a lot of good things about Pryor. The running backs, people getting banged up. Let's talk some Browns, some Indians, some who knows what's it with Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland and the Cleveland Fan, coming up next after the news here on the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, Will? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will?
We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Scott Fujita, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD, the excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad.
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnet, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. They received a tip. Documents filed in the NFL Players Association suit challenging Tom Brady's suspension revealed that the Ravens tipped off the Colts before last January's AFC Championship game about the conditions of game balls used at Gillette Stadium. Appearing today on Mike and Mike, ESPN NFL analyst Chris Carter questioned Brady's credibility.
Him not knowing in those 2 weeks between the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl and what the league might do pushed him into a corner that's leading to this defense that he didn't know anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a flat-out lie.
Brady will appear at a hearing in federal court 1 week from today. Bills coach Rex Ryan tells the Associated Press that running back Boobie Dixon could be sidelined for a month after pulling a calf muscle in training camp. He pitched 7 2/3 shutout innings in his Astros debut last Thursday. Scott Kazmir, acquired in a trade with Oakland on July 23rd, makes his second appearance with Houston tonight against Texas, 7 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN Radio. Publicist for Rory McIlroy says his client won't test his injured ankle this week at a practice round at Whistling Straits.
Get to Subway to try all 4 Lay's Do-Us-A-Flavor chip finalist flavors. Kettle Cook Greek Town Euro, Wavy West Coast Truffle Fries, New York Reuben, and Southern Biscuits and Gravy. Try all 4 before they're gone. Subway, eat fresh.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you, getting ready to be joined on the hotline by my man Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan, from EverybodyHatesCleveland.com, and he's here with us on the show as we get back into it. Welcome back in, you guys. I am glad to have each and every one of you with us, whether you're listening to the show live, whether you're listening on digital delay. Thank you, guys. And, of course, you can be a part of the show 24/7. You just can't use the phones right this second because we're about to have Dan Wismar on the hotline. Any other time, 216-539-7535 is the number to call. Facebook and Twitter right now, wide open. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Even though you probably can't hear too much on your end, my voice is still taking the toll from the weekend. It's way too much work to talk. You physically can feel the difference. Usually when you speak, it's effortless from your chest, and I'm actually getting a heck of a chest workout from pushing the words out, because I'll tell you what, if you've ever seen me wrestle, you know that I'm a bit of a loudmouth, and then I did it 4 times in 3 days. I was literally whispering the words out on Monday. I was like, boy, glad I scheduled this one off, because it wasn't happening one way or another. So, but I'm here. Hey, I'm not whining, baby. I'm putting some dirt on it and doing it. Getting ready to do it with Dan Wismar here. Let's get the phone lines open and catch up. Dan's got to catch me up, man. There's all kinds of things going on. Dan Wismar, my man. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jerry. Good to be back with you. Missed you.
Same here.
I wanted to say first of all that I had every intention of making it Saturday night. We had an event down in Columbus. We had to go to a 50th wedding anniversary party in the family, and I had every intention of being back. I had the directions all plugged into my phone and ready to go, head up to Avon when we got back. I ended up getting delayed and didn't get back home till about almost 8 o'clock, and it was another hour plus to drive up to Cleveland for your event, and I just did not make it. But so I wanted to apologize. I had every intention of getting there, and it was just a snafu that prevented it. But sounds like you had a brutal weekend. But anyway, I'll make it another time.
Yeah, no need to apologize, man. It was a good time though, most definitely, and I wish you could be there. So next time you'll be up here, man. But it was all fun. Bruce was there. That's right, in the chat room. He was there, and saw a lot of you guys up there. So that was cool. And Vince stopped by on his way up to his book signing, which I hear did very well over the weekend as well. Vince McKee, our good friend. So I guess everybody had a good weekend here. I don't know. Cleveland sports all weekend long. I was mentioning this at the beginning of the show. I had guys going, hey, what about? And I'm like, hey, I'm in the twilight zone. I'll catch up on all this stuff when I get back. So I guess we were talking Indians before the break. Why don't you and I talk a little bit there? The Indians, of course, passed the initial first trade deadline here, and they moved Murphy. They moved Zipchinski. They moved Brandon Moss as well. Am I missing anybody there in my recollections? I know those three got traded.
That's the big three. That's the big three there. I think, we knew that come the end of July, we suspected that they would be sellers instead of buyers. And I'm just glad that, we understand that they were entertaining discussions at the very least about some of their starting pitchers. Carrasco's name was mentioned, and I'm just glad that they got through that whole process without being tempted to unload one of those guys. I mean, it seems like the Indians are always in the off season. They're trying to get older because young teams don't win World Series. Let's face it. But during this time of year, you're going the other direction. You're trading off age and you're bringing in youth, and pretty excited about the left-hander Kaminsky that's coming in. That was good to see. Some of the impartial observers that I read, some of the national guys that rate how teams did in the trade deadline deals, had the Indians right up there, saying they literally stole this kid from the Cardinals. So I understand he's not a power arm necessarily, although his fastball gets up into the low to mid 90s. But supposedly the stereotype crafty lefty, smart guy. Pitches to locations and has a great curveball and can, throw strikes and is a intelligent guy who can bring it too. And he's from the left side, which is something that the Indians need. So glad to see that. He acquire more pitching and you give up Brandon Moss and basically Moss and Zipchinski had both been pretty much 2015 disappointments, wouldn't you say? Murphy obviously had a great year, and that helped his value, but then you turn around and move him for a middle infielder without a great hit tool. I was scratching my head a little bit about that move, but you get what you can get, I suppose, and it was time to move Murphy. If you predict something often enough, Jerry, sooner or later you'll be right, and we've been talking about moving Murphy
since
all
the
year
off
long.
Season.
So,
yeah.
I think in general, I was happy with the moves they made, and we see today and over the weekend and last night, the same thing we've seen all year. And that is excellent starting pitching and an offense that can't get out of their own way.
Oh yeah, and you're going to continue to see that. I mean, that's why it's going to be up and down. It'll be a battle for this team to finish at 500, and if they do where they're at now to then, I'll be happy with that, because that would mean you'll play the final 50, however many games it is. I'm not looking at the math right
It's
now.
about 50, yeah.
Yeah, you'll do it at least 10 games over 500, and you're going to have to do that just to get back to 500. That's why I was telling Bob, I get the optimism, and I'm one of those guys that holds on as long as possible too. But if you think that the Indians are going to make a playoff run now, you would literally be expecting them to win 35 or 40 of their remaining games and still have to hope that everybody else cooperates as well. And, I mean, normally I'd be hopeful for that too. But, I mean, that hasn't happened all season long. So what in the world would lead you to believe that run's coming? But I do believe that they can play 8 games over 500 the remainder of the way and get themselves at least back up to 500. Yeah, Bruce, that's 700 baseball. That's what the 90s Indians played, was 700 baseball. That's not happening over the rest of this season. But they can get back to 500 or I don't know, Mike said I'm nuts. He goes, you're nuts to even think about 500. I said, well, I got to have a goal here somewhere. But before we go anywhere else, I know a lot of guys aren't happy. Well, they should have traded for this, traded for that. Well, we're tired of playing for next year. What you said, Kaminsky, that guy, Mike and I were talking about him right after the trade. Number one, I'll take anybody from the St. Louis organization. Anytime we're making a trade, give me a Cardinals or an Astros prospect, one of those clubs that's got a ton of young talent. The Cardinals particularly, because they have always drafted so well. I'll take that all day. That's why I'm so intrigued by Ramsey so much and what we got with him last year. But Kaminsky was what? 3rd prospect in the whole St. Louis organization, and I believe that most sites had him anywhere between 5 and 10 in different rankings in baseball as far as prospects at the minor league level. So you were able to pick up a top 10, I think I saw him as high as maybe 8th in some rankings, prospect, and the Cardinals' 3rd best for a guy that was giving you nothing and that you were going to move one way or another. I know nobody wants to look at it this way right now, but that's a hell of a deal, and I do believe that is – Bruce, I get you. I get that he can't help now, but I completely disagree, because to me, you traded for Yan Gomes. He was a guy that wasn't going to help now either until, holy crap, where did this guy come from? You trade for Corey Kluber, who can't help now until, holy crap, where did this guy come from? So I disagree with that. Just because a guy doesn't help you in August doesn't mean he's not going to help you in 1 season or 2 seasons. This is a guy, Kaminsky, who was the, 28th pick in the draft in 2013. So he's a top 30 pick. I mean, you can't go wrong with young pitching. But, I mean, what did you want them to trade Moss for? You know, because I'll say this. Nobody was complaining about signing Brandon Moss in the offseason. Maybe some people weren't jumping up and down, but even people that weren't jumping up and down were going, well, at least he can hit some home runs. He'll put some power in this lineup. So it's not like, don't give me the hindsight stuff about Moss, because I sure as hell thought that he was going to help this lineup, and it turned out that he didn't. And all the home runs that he did hit came in situations that you didn't need him anyway. He hit home runs in 10-1 games, and he hit 3 home runs in 1 game and then didn't hit one for a month and stuff like that. But I'm all about that trade, Dan. I'm 100% with you on that, and I am all about that. That's another arm in the stockpile for this team in the next year or two.
Well, yeah, and it's not as though we're projecting him out 2 and 3 years either. The evaluations that I read had him probably being able to help this team a year from now in August of 2016.
Thank you.
So it's not like he's a way out prospect, a kid you just pulled out of the high school ranks or something. So he can help you a year from now. That's near term future, and that's good enough for me. Especially when you consider, like you said, what you were getting from Moss was a lot of disappointment.
And it's a pitcher. Pitching is the premium. You got a high-level minor league pitcher for a bum. You know what I mean? And no offense to Moss, I'm not saying. But, I mean, he was a bum for us this year for what we needed. And you were able to pawn that mistake off to, if nothing else, a asset that remains at a high level, because pitching will always be at a premium.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if you happen to read over on Everybody Hates Cleveland a little baseball roundtable, where it seems like the guys that were there, from Jim Pete to Adam Burke and the others, really sort of high-fiving Chris Antonetti for striking while the iron is hot, and basically taking advantage of the Cardinals' need to replace their bat when they had their right fielder get hurt on them, and pulling the trigger and getting a great prospect. It's not fashionable these days to be patting Chris Antonetti on the back, and I agree with you 100%. By the way, Jerry, when you said earlier before I got on here with you that the Tigers move does put heat on the Indians front office, because basically it's a good organization saying, here's what accountability looks like, people.
Right.
We've won 4 straight division championships, and we've had 2 World Series appearances, and Dombrowski had World Series appearances in Florida before he came to Detroit. And so here's a guy with an established track record of success and almost nothing but success as a baseball executive, shown the door because the Tigers are having a disappointing season. And honestly, he does have the Tigers on the hook for some serious dollars next year. I think I heard the other day $56 million just to Verlander and Miggy Cabrera alone.
That sounds about right, yeah.
That really are going to hamstring that organization, but it's also an organization with a free spending owner who doesn't care about that. So, but yeah, it's an example to the rest of baseball and the rest of the league, and that says, like I said, here's what accountability looks like, folks. Try some, and
that's a great point.
They might as well have been shouting that right at Mr. Dolan.
And that's the point that I'm making, too. See, and you know what? It's funny, because you went right where I knew we were going to go from what we were just talking about, because we're talking about a decent trade there for another minor league prospect, and that is where the Indians front office shines. That is where, if you're in the, hey, the front office is good side of the argument there, you go right to those. You go to the trades, because we joke about it all the time. If these guys could only trade for free agents, we'd be all right, man, because they make some good trades, and they have some problems when it comes to signing the free agents and picking the talent that way. And we know all of these issues. No reason to keep talking about it, but accountability. And that was kind of the main point that I'm making is you think the fan base was yelling at the Dolans to clear out the front office before. Now you've got, like you said, a winning organization with a huge budget, by the way, but a proven track record guy. And they said, hey, you're not getting it done, man. We've got some accountability here. And I mean, that to me just puts the focus right back on the Indians, because I mean, we were talking about it last week or whenever we were on. I mean, basically this front office has been unchanged from the beginning of the Dolans owning the team. I was joking last week that it's the anti-Browns formula. The Browns move somebody out every 30 days or whatever to put a new name on the door. These guys let people move in, and it's long-term living here when you get a job with the there's job security for sure with the Cleveland Indians, which is good to an extent, but then you start to wonder if maybe it's bad. And then doesn't Terry Francona being tied into it really just change the dynamic as well there too? Because, where do you go? And when is it a quick trigger, and when is it time to make a move? Because to me, you got Shapiro, Antonetti, and Francona kind of all tied together at the hip. So if you wanted to move a guy to shake things up, I don't think that's a possibility. I think it's all or nothing. I don't see two guys standing put while the other one gets moved out of his job. So it's all or nothing. Am I wrong about that? Can you see a scenario where you can shake things up and not lose everybody?
Not really. I don't see it because, like you say, they are joined at the hip. Francona is here because of Shapiro and Antonetti, and probably would not choose to stick around if they were gone. I'm almost certainly would not choose to stick around. I like the theory that you floated last week, that this is an organization that is being buffed up for possible sale.
Yes.
And, of course, you'd love to see it.
Please.
But, the other point to make is about Dombrowski and the Tigers, first of all, is this is not an organization that prior to Dombrowski had a great track record of success. I mean, the Detroit Tigers had 1968 and 1984, and that's about it. over the last 4 decades or so until they got him in there and they really became a model organization and a consistently winning organization under him. So it's not as though they were, the St. Louis Cardinals of the American League or something. They weren't.
You know what? I got a question, Dan.
Again, to his credit.
Based on what you just said, perfect setup. I got a question for you. Give me your opinion on this. Let's say that the Indians front office was given the exact same budget and non-limitations that Dombrowski had with the Tigers for the last however many seasons. Do you think the Indians would have been as successful as Detroit?
Boy, that's a tough question. I don't think that Mark Shapiro and Chris Antonetti lack, evaluation talent, and their scouting. I don't think their scouting is necessarily subpar. I think up until recently they haven't done a great job at development, and I still think that in terms of developing, position players, there may be some, I don't know what to call it, less than stellar performance in their minor league system because we just haven't seen the results of it. We draft guys that we think are going to be the next Wade Boggs, and they turn out to be the first Lonnie Chisenhall, although he's having a bit of a resurgence here since he came back. But that's obviously an impossible question to answer and be right. But, I think that they have the ability to evaluate talent, and that still doesn't necessarily mean, though, that from a free agent standpoint, you could get players to sign here. I understand that in baseball, it's the unwritten rule. In fact, it might even be a written rule in the union, in the contract, that you pretty much have to take the highest offer. You can't, there's a lot of pressure on free agent players to take the last dollar, even if maybe their preferences, geographic or otherwise, might cause them to take maybe the second or third best offer because of quality of life issues or location preferences or whatever, loyalty issues. But like Tomey, like Ramirez, like all the guys that have turned around and left here as free agents, there's a lot of pressure to take that buck, the big buck, and that comes from the union. You really can, you're hamstrung to do anything else. So I guess if you want to overpay for free agents, if dollars are no object, then I guess certainly Shapiro and his guys could land some free agents if they had unlimited resources to do it, and you just have to trust them to pick the right ones and not the switchers of the world.
Okay, I'm just curious. It's apples to oranges a lot, but that's why I posed the question that way, because you wonder, okay, those guys spent a ton of money and had hella regular seasons and got to playoffs, but they've won as many championships as the Tribe. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you can spend a ton of money, but it doesn't necessarily get the job done, as we've seen, and that's obviously what led to him being out. And, of course, this year they were hit, and still stayed stronger than people thought, but they fell off a bit when you get the injuries. And like you said, now they're at the back end of that Faustian bargain that you make when you buy high and you try to win now and you pile, you end up with a huge payroll of guys that are on the back end of things, and it just completely hamstrings your organization.
Yeah, that's true, and they are there, and they did win 4 straight division titles, but they won 0 World Series. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Texas Rangers going out and spending $150 million and bringing in everybody, and you're one pitch away from winning a World Series, one strike away from winning a World Series, and you don't win one, and you're in 2 series back to back, and they're still sitting there looking for that first one after all the hundreds of millions that they've spent. So yeah, you're right. Money can't buy it necessarily, but I think the important thing, and we can go back to the Indians anytime you want, but one point I wanted to make here is that we really are at that point right now where the baseball fan, that's you, that's me, that's other people that we know, instead of turning off baseball, now it's time to look at baseball writ large, okay? We're coming into and there's some amazing stories. I mean, I looked this morning, and if the playoffs were to start today, I mean, you can play this game all the way from now until, the end of September. But if the playoffs were to start today in the National League, the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Mets would all be in, along with the Cardinals and the Dodgers. That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
That is exciting to me. That makes me just, drool with anticipation about, what October is going to look like. Can you imagine the Cubs and the Pirates and the Mets all being in the playoffs? Obviously, the Cardinals and the Dodgers might be the favorites, but Pittsburgh Pirates have the second best record in the National League, and they're really flying under the radar. In other words, throw in Houston, the American League.
Yeah.
Throw in the fact that right now we're talking about the Twins being a game or so away from being a wild card team. It's some incredible stories, and it's going to be high drama over the next couple of months that the baseball fans are just going to be able to savor. I certainly am looking forward to it. Disappointed in my Indians, but hey, this is what it's all about in baseball is when you start getting into the fall, August and September, and man, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely right. And, pulling up those standings as you say that, there's another one when you compare the Tigers' situation to the Indians. The Tigers dumped their general manager. They're 4 games back of the wild card. They're as much in the thick of that thing as anybody else. They're several games better than the Indians there. There's only 4 teams separating the Tigers from the wild card right now, and yet still gloom and doom there for them. It just shows you the different set of urgency and situations and stuff like that, and all of that stuff, man. And I'm totally with you with that. You know what? Interesting. This is just off the Indians a little bit, but over the weekend, well, actually yesterday, got a chance to catch up with some people, and where were we? What were we watching yesterday? I don't know. We were watching, catching up on some Sports Center or whatever. There's a group of about 10, 12 guys in the room, and the majority of them are 20 to 30. They're in that age range. And so this was just a total research conversation to me, but I've often talked about how baseball in general is losing the modern fan, the younger fan base or whatever. And I saw an example of it so big. I just sat there and said, guys, tell me. I said, if you don't mind, I said, I'm not trying to, research on you guys, but this is something I talk about on my show. Tell me why you feel that way. Because some clips came up and I said, hey, what happened with the Indians game or whatever? I said, hey, you guys, let me watch this for a minute. And I started hearing some guys crapping on baseball. Like, man, baseball is boring and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, yeah, just because it's not your sport, hush down. And he goes, no, they need to change the sport. And I said, but you're not a baseball fan. So, of course, to you, they need to change the sport because it's too slow. But to a baseball fan, it's just fine. And next thing you know, everybody's chiming in the room. And I'm hearing that I used to like baseball, but baseball's slower and it's the football this and basketball that. And not in a terrible way, but these guys are just being honest and going, hey, man, I love the Indians, but I check the score on my phone and that's it. I can't sit through a big, long baseball game. It's too slow paced. It's too boring. And I'm just going, man, this is baseball, not Indians. This is baseball's problem in general right here, is that this is the prime demographic for advertisers, for anything to go after. It's that 18 to 35 demographic. And here's a whole room of them telling me all the reasons that they can't sit through a baseball game. They like the Indians, and they'll check it out from time to time, or they'll go to a game here and there. But the pace of the game, all of that, it's too slow, it's too whatever, boring, whatever term you want to use. And they kept throwing suggestions on how baseball could make the game faster and more exciting and stuff. And I'm going, man, wow, I'm telling you, this is a cultural thing that baseball is going to deal with. It's already dealing with it. It's not just a Cleveland thing. Just because their attendance is pumped up in certain markets does not mean that this trend is not continuing downward to where I truly see a league coming up where you have the handful of strong, good, big market teams that win and fans stay paying attention, but you end up with a whole half or more of the league with situations like the Indians and the Tampa Rays here very soon with poor attendance and inability to keep the fan bases. And I know we've talked about shortening the season and things like that before, but this was like before my eyes, just market research from a group of young, and they're not just young 18. These are guys that are 26, 27, 28, all explaining to me how they used to like baseball, but as they get older, it's too slow. It's this, and they're comparing it to different sports. And I'm going, wow, this is baseball is dealing with this right now, whether they realize it or not. And I see it getting even worse over the next 10 years.
Well, that may very well be, and I agree that the young cohort in the country today is less enthused about baseball than maybe their fathers and grandfathers were. But one thing that always puzzles me about, I used to like baseball when I was young, but now it's too slow. Like it got slow all of a sudden.
Right. They just got more things to
like it
distract
wasn't
them.
always
Yes.
relaxing, and the people like you and me, Bruce, and of course, and others that are baseball fans, the pace of play, the tempo of the game. These are not bugs. These are features. We enjoy that. That's what we get out of the game. We love the pace of the game. We love the fact that there's not a clock on it and there's not a time limit on it, and that the game's not over until you get 27 outs and all those things. Like I said, they're features, not bugs. So the people who love the game aren't worried about how slow it is because that's the way it is, and that's what we love about it. So yeah, when someone says I used to like it, but now it's too slow for me, well, you've changed. It has.
But that's the point. I think, Dan.
But that's a separate problem from young people today aren't as into baseball as they were before. It's not as sexy as the NBA. I feel that way sort of about the NBA, that it's hard for me to, unless it's the Cavs. And any baseball game will do for me. I'll watch the, Cardinals and the Astros, if there's nothing else good on. What I won't do is just during the regular season watch the Warriors play the Thunder and be able to sit through it start to finish in an NBA game. Just doesn't have enough there to hold my attention for 2 hours. But I'll sit and watch a baseball game and read something and do something else, or keep the game on and watch baseball anytime. It's like college football. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Cal against Arizona in a college football game. I'll watch it because I love the sport. But that's just me. But you're right, and in Cleveland here, especially where we've alienated an entire generation or two with 3+ decades of just crappy baseball. Where there's no winning team and organization for a young person growing up to get latched onto, to get excited about, to have great childhood memories of, we had that 90s flash in the pan, but before and since it's been a long drought, of course, and nobody knows that better than you.
Oh, for sure. Dan Wismar joining us here on the Sports Fix. And you said what you said there was kind of right on it. And like I looked at it, I'm getting red in the face, and I go, yeah, but if you're a baseball fan, you don't need to change anything because your sport's just fine. And he goes, and how did he say it? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, kind of to wrap it up, the guy, and his comment was perfect. But what you said is great. It's not that. It's that the fans, they're changing, but I believe that that's a generational thing. I believe a whole generation of fans have changed their attention, not just fans, but just in general, have changed their attention spans, changed all of that. But the guy looks at me and he goes, well, you can love it just the way it is, but I'd rather watch the NFL, or whatever he said. However he said it, I was like, I can't argue at that point either. Like, he's like, well, baseball fans can be happy with it the way it is, but doesn't change the fact that I'm not going to watch it, and I mean,
well, and the good news is, Jerry, for every Cleveland Indians situation, maybe there is right now today young fans of the Houston Astros, young kids, 9-year-old Cubs fans, 8-year-old, 12-year-old Pirates fans, 13-year-old Mets fans who are getting those childhood memories right now and maybe are becoming fans for life because of what's going on with their programs right now and their teams right now. And that's a cool thing. We wish it were happening here, and we had a generation of people get enthused back in the 90s here in Cleveland. But, for every bad example of that, you can look around baseball and say, wow, it's a great thing that Houston, the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Mets, as 4 examples, are on an upswing, doing well, and who knows how they'll look 2 months on. But right now, like I say, if the playoffs started today, they'd be playing playoff baseball, and that's remarkable.
And see, maybe if the Indians get things rolling again, I would see a difference. But like one of the things that I reference as well is my own kids, and they're this exact age range that we're talking about. The one's 16 and one's 8. So over the last 16 years, I've watched them, which is kind of the whole time the Dolans have owned the team. But anyways, I've watched my kids' interest in baseball, and you got to realize that I'm not the average guy. I'm super sports fan. We're watching all the time, and we're overdosing on sports, you know, and Indians and all the local stuff. I still, to this day, have the hardest time, and I mean in person or on the TV, getting those kids to sit through an entire baseball game. It's the era that they live in and the minute attention span that these kids have, man. And it's to the point that it's more enjoyable not to go. We'll find other things to do together because we'll do the occasional baseball game together. But if we're doing it, I can know that come the 7th inning or so, I may not be able to watch the last few innings of this game because we may have to leave or we may be having issues and may have whatever. So I see it on my own, even when they want to. I mean, I'll watch kids. Hey, we watching the Tribe game? Yeah. By the 2nd or 3rd inning, their faces in the phone. They're moving to the other room. They're walking. Next thing you know, I'm watching the game by myself by the 5th inning or so.
And part of it, I think, is just, the visual stimulation and audio stimulation that kids get today from, Pixar films to video games with, everything exploding and loud noise and excitement and fast motion and everything from the films they watch, from the video games they watch, from the apps they have on their phone. You can certainly understand why the pace of a baseball game would bore them to tears. But it's an acquired taste, obviously.
I know.
It took me a long time.
I'm trying to get them to acquire it, Dan. That's the problem.
Into it, from the cradle. I was reading box scores when I was 8 years old.
That's what it is, though. That's what it is.
It's a lifetime thing. So, and anymore, it's not voluntary. It's like people say, "Why do you care so much about whether the Indians win?" You don't get it. It's not a voluntary thing. It's not something I can turn on and off. It's part of what you're made of.
No, absolutely. That's the thing is I'm trying to immerse them into it. I'm trying to start them from the cradle, man. And I just know that if I, on my own personal level, am dealing with this, magnify that by 1,000,000, man. That's the problem that baseball in general, and I don't know how to fix it because you and I keep getting back to the rabbit hole of people that like baseball think it's just great the way it is. Matter of fact, they want more of it the way it is. And the people that aren't watching it want it to be changed completely differently. So I don't know how you find the happy middle ground. And again, maybe if the Indians went through a resurgence run again, not just a wild card run, but a 5-10 year run of beating the hell out of the ball every night and having the big offense that they had. Because the Indians of now are the Indians of the 90s in reverse, I swear, man. Now, then they could slug the ball out of any ballpark, and I'm not going to say they couldn't pitch because they had adequate pitching for sure, and at times they had good pitching, but they never had the level of pitching that they needed, and now it's the opposite. Now they got World Series winning pitching, and they don't have a stick to put in the lineup to make it happen. So, but I think it's more exciting to watch baseball that doesn't end in a World Series but has great offense than baseball that doesn't end in a World Series and has low-scoring, well-pitched games that you lose 60% of.
You're right, and the other thing that this Indians team does not have right now is a marquee player or two. I mean, you had Albert Bell, Jim Thome, Manny Ramirez.
Yeah.
There is not that guy, and it's no slam on Michael Brantley, who's probably your best player and a 300 hitter, and a guy that hits with a little bit of power. He's not a guy that captures the imagination like even some of the younger players today, whether it's Chris Bryant or whoever it is, who have the potential to be a superstar. Are a superstar right now. There isn't that guy, and there isn't that guy. I got to go to the ballpark to see so-and-so because I want to say that I saw Albert Bell play in person, and so
even
I'm going to take my
Lindor's
kid to the ballpark so he can see that. And Michael Brantley isn't that guy, as good a player as he is. So that's part of it. You might say I want to take my kid to the ballpark so he can see Carlos Carrasco in person, but your great pitchers don't have the attraction that a great hitter like an Albert Bell or Manny Ramirez would have to kind of capture a town. And when they promote the game on TV, they say, Manny Ramirez and the Cleveland Indians against so-and-so. There's a name that's associated with the franchise, a star. There is not that guy right now.
That's huge. That is every bit as huge, too. I'm totally with you in agreement there. Brantley is a great player, but he's not that. It doesn't, in the picture, it doesn't even Corey Kluber. You got to have that.
Yeah, he's not Poppy, Mike Trout. He's not even, Josh Hamilton for a couple of years. He's not the guy that compels people to come and see because, oh, my God, he's going to hit it 500 feet.
Yep, and that's people dig the long ball, man, and that's a big piece of it. But in general, that star, everybody was buzzing about Lindor, but it's not like the gates flooded at the attendance when he came up. You know what I mean? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Albert Bell. We're talking about come see, one of the best in the game at what he does. By the way, speaking of the best and one of the best, Kipnis, real quick before we go to the Browns, on the disabled list now, third time in his career here. What are you hearing? Because again, I'm just kind of catching up here. Is it looking like this is going to be a short-term stint, or is this going to be longer here for the Indians' best offensive player?
Well, I think that's probably just guesswork for you and me. Shoulder aggravation, I believe, was the adjective or the noun they used to describe what the situation was with the shoulder. That can be short or long term, I guess. I guess it's a take no chances kind of thing. It's his right shoulder, his front shoulder, and his throwing shoulder. So, more serious, you'd think, than if the left one were aggravated. But, no way to know how long it's going to be. It's tough to take your best hitter out of an already weak hitting lineup. And, I noticed that you're playing your next 13 of your next 16 games against the Twins and Yankees. Both teams, one that's going to the playoffs and one that has a pretty good shot at it. So it's not like the schedule's giving you any break during the time that the Kipnis is going to be out. You've got 6 against the Twins, 7 against the Yankees, and got the Red Sox thrown in there over the 3-game series in the middle of that. But you're playing good teams over the next 2-3 weeks, and you're going to miss Jason Kipnis for sure.
Absolutely. This afternoon here, not long after we get off the air, they're going to wrap it up with the Angels. Danny Salazar on the mound here for the Tribe. And then, as you said, the Twins coming in. They're loaded up with promotions this weekend, so there should be some good crowds. You got Rockin' Blast, which is always close to a sellout when they do those. Dollar Dogs, Brantley bobblehead, all the things that the Indians. By the way, I drove past that doggone Dollar Dog sign coming up from Dayton the other night. It was Sunday night, about 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I'm coming up 71, and sure enough, Dollar Dog night. And I was just like, I yelled at the people in the car. I go, see? That's what I was yelling about last week. I'm driving up, and that's all they put on the billboard. They didn't even say who they were playing. They just said Dollar Dog Night, and I'm like, doggone it. Same with this email that they sent me here. The whole thing is the Rockin' Blast, and we also are offering Dog Night and Michael Brantley bobblehead this weekend. I'm like, well, at least we know what gets the people out to the park. But,
and we're gonna throw in a baseball game on the side.
That billboard just kicks me in the gut, and I know why they do it. I get it, and it's a billboard. You've only got 10 seconds to grab somebody's attention, and they're driving past it, and you put the biggest thing on there. But, I mean, it doesn't even say Twins versus Indians in small letters, Dollar Dog Night. It's just, that's the stupid little thing that drives me crazy. But at this point in the season, they're just trying to, get as much as they can out of what they can and what's left here, obviously. So it is what it is. It will be big crowds, and that Rockin' Blast thing is always awesome. It's like a fireworks night on steroids or whatever. So that'll be a good time for the fans that do get a chance to go out there and check that out. Let's switch off to the other team that is getting rolling here, and we don't have to speculate anymore. We can actually talk about things that have happened, and I guess things started happening right away. I was out of town all weekend, so I literally was out of town from day one of training camp, and I've caught myself up now, but right off the bat, looked like it could be a bad thing that turns into maybe it's not going to be as bad. Billy Wynn goes down right off the bat, gets carted out, but it looks like it may be a several just week recovery instead of perhaps a season-long injury. But the Browns have been struck very early by the injury bug. A lot of hamstring tweaks early in camp. A lot of guys banged up. They've got some running back issues at depth there because Duke Johnson and Crowell are banged up. So you've got guys that are definitely getting the toll. Hamstrings all over camp. But Billy Wynn was a big scare for the Browns right off the bat. Looks like, though, it's not going to be as bad as they thought.
Yeah, and I'm, of course, glad to hear that, although and I can't recall who it was that I was reading on this topic, but after Billy Wynn got hurt, it was floated around that, well, Billy Wynn, may be a marginal candidate, or at the very least is not a sure bet to make this club with all the new defensive linemen they brought in, from Starks to, getting Desmond Bryant back healthy and bringing in Xavier Cooper and bringing in Danny Shelton, that Billy Wynn is no lead pipe cinch to make this team, even if he's healthy. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me, and obviously it's a good thing because you're deeper and you're better. And I've always liked Billy Wynn. He's had a little bit of a hard time staying healthy, but bottom line is the talent and the depth there on the defensive line is such that he's no sure thing.
Oh, yeah, no, and I wouldn't be surprised by that either, which is a good thing because that's a guy that I like a lot. And if he's not able to make the team, that means you did pretty well for yourself. But it was the kind of set the tone there, like I said, about the injuries early on. And, I mean, really, the hamstring is really starting to be a thing. And you know what? I'm not incredibly – I believe a lot of teams are probably, if you look around the league, dealing with this right now because you're at the beginning of camp. And whether guys have been training on their own or not, there's a difference. And obviously we've dealt with some humid weather here in the first real stretch of summer that we've had here in Cleveland over the last 2 weeks. And it went from not summer to 90 degrees every day for like 2 weeks, and that was it. But anyway, so I think you get some of that with dehydration and with the early part of camp, but we're seeing that all. I mean, the receivers, the running backs, there's been a lot of guys that have gone down. And as a matter of fact, the brown-orange scrimmage looks like you may have 10, 15 significant guys not participating.
Right, and at the running back, it looks like it's especially bad. I mean,
yes.
Winston, of course, has been sitting out since the beginning with some kind of a knee issue. I'd love to see a little bit of him and get some reviews on him, but West goes down with a little bit of a tweak, and who was Duke Johnson also with a hamstring.
Yeah.
Then you've got Terrell, just said he felt a little tightness in the hamstring. Doesn't feel he's pulled it, hasn't injured it necessarily. Felt a little bit tight. Rested him yesterday as a precautionary measure. And of course, there's so much attention being paid to the guy who might be the sixth receiver on the team that probably a little bit more attention than is warranted. But Pryor represents a guy who's sexy from a fan standpoint, and obviously is a known guy, a Buckeye, of course, and a guy who's been a little bit in some trouble. So he's probably getting more attention maybe than he should, or maybe even more than he'd like.
I don't know, Dan. I don't know, though. I got to tell you something. I think we're sleeping. I'm just going to say I've talked to a couple of players. I'm just saying there's a lot of people high stock right now.
Some buzz,
on
some
Terrell
serious
Pryor,
buzz on Terrell Pryor.
On what he can do. And I'm going, are you serious, man? I mean, and I'm hearing it from fans that have gone to the first couple. I mean, Terrell Pryor is definitely, he came serious. He came in shape, as we already talked about. He came serious about this. That was another one that came up when I was talking to that group of my friends last night. He came up, and I mean, I'm telling you, I got a feeling that Terrell Pryor may, I mean, obviously this is very, very early, but I got a feeling that he's going to make a run at making this team and making some noise, man. I mean, it still has to be done. But I think you and I, maybe even sleeping on Terrell Pryor, maybe a little bit more, and that's good because that's the Browns could use some good surprises this season because that's what's going to really
right.
Be
and of course
maker.
The stars were a little bit aligned for Pryor in Cleveland with Filippo there.
Yep.
And if you're going to make a switch positions in the NFL, it's better to come in and do it in a system that you already know, so you don't need to learn formations and learn patterns and learn adjustments and things like that. You've got it. So the transition has got to be as easy as it could possibly be for him. That's not to say it's going to be a walk in the park, but I question whether Pryor is going to be able to separate much from DBs. But the upside is when you're 6'6", 230, you don't have to separate that much from DBs. You can compete with them for the ball and win. So you've brought in Bo this year, who's big, and Taylor Maley is a big guy. So we're going to go from a Smurf receiving core. We're going to still have our Smurfs, Hawkins, and Hilliard.
We'll have some big guys,
but we've got some size, and if Pryor is thrown in there with Bo and with Maley and with a good-sized Brian Hartline, you're a lot bigger as a receiving core than you were last year.
More
but
athletic,
Pryor,
too.
What sells is what's sexy is not just the size, but the athleticism, the open field speed, and whatever. I've been skeptical about it because I've never seen a lot of lateral moves from Pryor, not a lot of elusiveness in space, things that NFL receivers have that are successful. But again, if you're using him more as an H-back and less as a wide-out, split-out wide, then, all the better. If he's looking more like a tight end, I think he has more of a tight end skill set, although we don't know if he can block or if he has the mindset or the, effort needed to block. Although, I got to say, the kid has had nothing but the best attitude in terms of saying all the right things.
Right.
It's interesting to see Jim Tressel show up at camp the other day in support of him. Pryor is singing from the right song sheet, let's put it that way, in terms of not wanting to assume anything and making the team, wanting to learn everything as much as possible from the Dwayne Bowes and the Brian Hartlines of the world and the established guys that are NFL veterans. I'm here to soak it up. I'm here to learn as much as I can. And so, in other words, the attitude is where it wants to be. And like we said, he's in stunning shape. I think he played at Ohio State at about 240 to 245. He's 225 now, and he's
ripped.
So he doesn't have tight end size. He's got big wide receiver size. I just hope that the skill set, they can find a happy medium, and obviously that's John DeFilippo's job to get the most out of that athlete that you've got there, put him in situations where he can make plays for you.
And the two things that I'm waiting to see, and you can't see this until you get to play in a few games here and until you get closer into camp. Number one, the injury thing, because to me, he cannot miss significant time in this camp if he's going to make the team. Even if he's doing balls to the wall, he cannot miss any time. I mean, that's just going to set him back too far. So hopefully he doesn't, because if he does, that'll be a casualty there. If not, the other thing is what you brought up, the separation and being able to do that, which we won't be able to see until he's playing against other teams with different helmets on, and we'll see that in the preseason. But I'm not going to go as far as, was it Dante Whitner? I saw the headline popped up while I was on the road over the weekend. It just said, Dante Whitner, I guarantee Terrell Pryor makes this team, or something like that. I'm not going to go that far until I see the guy playing in some games, but everything that I'm hearing has got him as one of the early MVPs for sure of the first part of camp, and that's what they need, is some pleasant surprises, because you're going to have enough questions and enough holes. But you brought up running backs and guys missing time. Talk about Duke Johnson. That's somebody that Mike Pettin was quite frustrated actually in his injury there, because that's a guy that you really hoped to work in from day one as being one of your main guys in that rotation, and now he's got the hamstring tweak, and he's going to be perhaps a week or two. And Mike Pettin was very clear, you can't get set back at this point in time. And I mean, we've talked about it. When rookies miss their first few weeks of camp, we talked about Maley that way with his surgery. They very rarely can catch up to speed by the start of the season, and then they're playing catch-up all the way along. Now, I will say that running back is a little more plug-and-play than some of the other positions on the field, but still, that's a disappointment, because I think you and I and all of us as Browns fans and Browns media all kind of had him pegged as somebody that could probably help out from day one.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt, especially as a pass receiver, a skill set that the other guys don't necessarily have, or at least don't excel at. Now, I haven't heard anything about Crowell. He has not had an injury.
I'm sorry. I mixed up
Weston.
I mixed up West and Crowell when I was saying that. Crowell's healthy.
Yeah,
it's West and Johnson that are banged up.
Right. And read somewhere again yesterday, and I may have been Mary Kay. I don't know. I read as much as I can get my hands on, including some of the blogs. That Terrence West isn't exactly in great favor with the management team right now. I don't know if it's an attitude thing or what it is, but they said he came in a little chunky. They weren't necessarily pleased with his physical condition, and that thin ice, I believe, was the term that was used that I read just yesterday in a piece on the running back situation. So
I mean, they've got depth, Dan, at the running back position. I mean, we talk about Johnson, Crowell, and West, but you've mentioned quite a bit Winston and wanted to see him, although he hasn't got rolling. And Sean Drawn, too, is another guy who has a lot of interest, not just with the Browns, but other teams around the league. So they're deep at that running back position. Plus, they've got a couple of fullback possibilities there, too, to where they could easily pull 4 or 5 deep group of running backs out of 6 or 7 different players.
Yeah, that's true. And some guys are like sort of the hybrids from Hausler to Malcolm Johnson, the draft choice.
Yeah. I like Malcolm Johnson.
They like what they've seen out of him, and they have several of those H-back tight end / fullback types of guys, in addition to the 4 or 5 tailbacks that they've got in camp. So yeah, you're right. It's as deep a group as we've seen maybe since the Browns came back in '99. I can't recall numbers and quality like this in the last 16 seasons, roughly. So,
and that's
good thing. And hopefully, it seems like Duke Johnson, his hamstring situation wasn't thought to be terribly serious. We know that Pryor's isn't, and I'm not sure what the West injury was. I can't recall off the top of my head.
I believe it's a tweak in
Terrence West
knee
was.
I believe it's in his knee and his leg there. The thing is with that being a good position for the Browns, that is a bad position for West, because when you're on the bubble and you're causing issues or whatever it may be, and there's depth at the position, you've just made your job even harder. Speaking of depth at the position, let's talk about another position that we were looking forward to seeing the depth that the Browns have put together, and that's the defensive backs, because that's an area that has been built up over the last 2 seasons with the draft and free agency. A lot of the talk all over the place, nationally especially, a lot of the guys watching Browns camp, Pierre Desir, kind of the early first week MVP. And again, it's easy to be the MVP when you're wearing shorts and you're just getting to cracking some pads out and all of that stuff. But Pierre Desir is somebody that we were looking at after a year off and going, this guy, he started to come up at the end of last year, and he's going to make some noise this year, and he is definitely, and he's getting first team reps. He's going already jumping ahead of Justin Gilbert here, which is both good for Pierre Desir and for the Browns, but bad at the same time when you look at Justin Gilbert, and he's once again being passed up for more first team opportunities.
Yeah, and I guess I would hesitate to read a lot more into that 1 day's worth, especially a day when you're actually resting your actual starter, who is Tremont Williams. And that's the reason that anybody besides Williams and Hayden are getting first-team reps. But, it's significant because it's, again, more evidence that Mike Pettin means what he says when he says, I don't care how high you were drafted, I want effort and I want productivity. That's what we're seeing. So he doesn't just talk the talk when it comes down to it. I don't care if you're Justin Gilbert and you were the 7th pick in the draft for the 8th. Pierre Desir has been outplaying you in this last 2 days of practice, and so he's going to get the reps with the first team. Don't sleep on K'Wan Williams either. We've talked about him. Really, I think you've got, if Desir shows that he's going to be an NFL corner, you've got 5 guys, and I'm counting Gilbert in that group, that are good cornerbacks. You thought you might hurt a little bit for losing Buster Screen, but you're deep at that position. Now, when you talk about defensive backfield, I would make the distinction between corner and safety. I don't think we're very deep at safety. But, yeah, certainly the cornerback spot is as deep as we've seen it in many years for this team. And if you've got 5 guys that can play, and you'll need 5 guys that can play, cornerbacks are a premium in the NFL right now, and I think we're in a good place with ours. I'm more concerned about either Gibson or Whitner going down because we're not nearly as deep there.
For sure, and again, they continue to build up. And that's the thing, as you said, when you build up the depth at these things and you continue to show accountability. We used that word when we started talking about the Indians, and that is the main thing, is that the deeper you get at these positions and you finally build up the depth across the skill position, any position, and you build it up 2, 3, 4, 5 guys deep, all of a sudden, and it's not just lip service. What have these Browns not done for all of these years? If they draft them, they play them. If they sign them, they play them. If they picked them, they play them, and that's all there is to it. And I'm all about what you said. And I think Mike Pettin, for once, is finally the guy to come in and go, I don't care if you're number 1 or if you're number irrelevant or if you're number picked up off the street for 50 cents. If you're the best guy, I'm trying to win football games, and I'm going to put you out there on the field because I'm getting fired if I play the first-round pick or if I play the street guy and we lose. So I'm going to play the guy that's going to help me win the games, and forever the Browns have been lacking that. And I do believe, if nothing else, Mike Pettin is true to what he says there. The best players are going to play no matter what the name on the back of the jersey is. Yeah, that's right. And the other shining example of that, I guess, right now is this Scott Solomon, who is literally off the scrap heap and, right now getting reps at outside linebacker ahead of the Marquivas Mingos and whoever else is out there. You've got Armani Bryant and that's a number 6 pick,
and others competing to start across from Kruger. You assume Kruger's got one OLB spot knocked down, and you've got Armani Bryant, Mingo, and Solomon, and there's a fourth one that I'm forgetting somehow out there at outside linebacker. That
Nate Orchard.
No, right, exactly, Nate Orchard, the fourth guy, and Solomon. All he did is come in last year when no one knew his name. You saw this number 54 there. Who was that guy that just made that play? Well, that's Scott Solomon. I just signed him this week, and for a couple of weeks in a row there, he was on the field and he was making plays, and that's what jumps off the film at you, and who cares where he came from? So he's the other example. And Mingo, if you're going to play, if you're going to justify being a first-round pick, you got to step up your game. And this year, those 5 guys, throw Kruger in with the other 4, you're going to have to get after the passer because if you can't do that, nobody succeeds in the NFL these days if you can't rush the passer.
And you know what? You just keep bringing up examples. To me, there isn't a need for the words wait and see on Mike Pettin. I mean, you mentioned whether you're talking about Barkevius Mingo, first round, top 6 draft pick, sitting behind guys. You're talking about Justin Gilbert, first round pick, sitting behind guys that came at the end of the draft. Johnny Manziel, first round pick, sitting behind everybody until it caused a whole problem last year. But my point is if nothing else, Mike Pettin has proven by his actions and not his words that he does not care what your pedigree is. I mean, those are 3 first-round top premier draft picks for the organization that are all bumped down underneath guys who are playing and practicing better than they are.
Yeah, and you hope that in a perfect world, the thing that happens is those 3 guys pick it up.
Yes, of course.
And their natural ability, which we know they have, physical ability, comes to the fore, and they can rise up and respond to the challenge. But nothing is given, and you hear coaches say that all the time. But that's what I mean about walking the walk. In other words, it's not just rhetoric with this guy. It's on-field playing time on Sundays, and so he means it. Players know he means it, and veterans respect that. The thing that really gets in veterans' cry is to see high-round draft picks come in with a sense of entitlement and arrogance and think they're going to walk on the field and play before they can produce results. And so you got to believe that it's the veterans that really are whose hearts are warmed by the way that Pettin runs things.
And I'm telling you, to me, that is the best thing. Forget anything else. Forget big name free agents, money, any of that stuff. What we're talking about is truly the best thing that Browns fans could be hearing right now, because that is the crux of part of what's been broken with this organization from the beginning, is no accountability and, well, no common sense at the top either. That's a big part of it too. And it just feels like for once you've got a guy who doesn't jerk your chain, who tells you like it is, and who just simply is going to do what's best for the football team. It's such a randomly different concept to some people here in Cleveland that I think they still aren't used to it yet. But that is it. I'm not talking Farmer. I'm not talking Haslam. I don't. You may not like those guys. I'm talking Mike Pettin. And that's what we're discussing here. And to me, he has proven himself to me to be a man of what he says, and that alone is at least some hope for the Browns to put their bank on here. Defensively, I like what we're seeing. We're talking about the DBs and the linebackers. And, of course, you knew. I mean, Mike Pettin's a defensive guy, and he has gone after. By the way, what was the number that I saw? I think how much of this roster that they've turned over since Mike Pettin took over. It is a significant number of talent that they've brought out and shipped in or whatever. But the defense, the big beneficiary. Up front, too, you mentioned Billy Wynn. All those guys that you mentioned earlier, the Browns continuing to see that. But I want to flip over to the big position. Obviously, the one that we really haven't touched on yet, quarterback. And let's talk a little bit about that. Matter of fact, before we even, have you heard? I've heard a little bit. I've got different reports coming out of Houston, Brian Hoyer, and what he's doing down there. I've actually got a buddy down there who told me that neither quarterback down there in Houston is exactly blowing down the doors in their battle for the starting quarterback position. But the whole left there, I can't lie. I got into it with some fans when I got back over the weekend because I had some of the groups that we're a part of or whatever. I had these. Did you see the picture that was circulating over the weekend of McCown with his arm around Johnny Manziel? And there was a story that somebody had put together and circulated that literally that the title was, "Now we know what was wrong with Johnny Manziel last year." And the gist of this was blaming what happened with Johnny Manziel's first season on Brian Hoyer not being a good mentor for him. And I'm like, wait a minute. So now the narrative has gone to this level that this is what was wrong, and now we've got this nice guy at quarterback who's going to teach Johnny how to play. Throw all that crap out of the window. From what I've heard, it's been a very rough start to camp for Johnny Manziel, very much picking up right where he left off, but a lot of pleasantly okay analysis thus far. Again, in pads and shells for what Josh McCown has done early on. But his arm, at least early on, has looked relatively sharp, and he's done a good job running the limited amount of offense that they have. But where are you at on kind of all of those different narratives? Of course, quarterback always being the marquee position there. But I don't know if you saw that or not, but it kind of got my goat. I'm like, look, let's not start this again, man. Are we really starting to reboot the Manziel train? Look, he's either got it or he doesn't. But why are we making excuses for a guy? That really got me. So I got into it with some people over the weekend. But that being said, I don't care who's his friend or not. Early on, at least, a lot of the same struggles for number two.
No doubt. And I think the best part of the whole storyline is that it's not all about Johnny this year. And I think that really is where the difference is. First of all, I think the story, it's almost like the guy saw a photograph and said, let's write a story that goes with this photograph.
Yes, thank you.
That seems like the kind of journalism that we're talking about here. Now, I have heard that Josh McCown has been good about reaching out and being a mentor to Johnny Manziel. Why? Because he has the full confidence and endorsement of the front office and the coaching staff as the guy. He is the starter. There's not a quarterback competition. There was a quarterback competition last year right out of the gate, and we learned very early in camp last year that and Hoyer, I think, might have fueled some of it by basically saying, I don't know, it's not like we don't get along, but I don't talk to him a lot. We're not great friends, but he would make comments like that weren't gushing about how I'm going to be a mentor to Johnny Manziel. I'm not going to be a mentor to the guy that's trying to take my job and thinks he can take my job, and that the coaches have pitted us against each other from the very start of camp in a competition to see who the starter will be. That is, we're experiencing the opposite of that this year. They learned their lesson. if nothing else. And from the get-go, it has been McCown's our guy. He's looked better in everything from OTAs, mini camps, everything else. He's the veteran. He's done this. He's won games in the NFL before, and he's our guy. So with that kind of no pressure on McCown, sure, he can afford to be a nice guy and take the kid under his wing and at least be perceived to be helping him out. It's night and day from the situation that we had last year.
Oh, I agree with that. Absolutely. I mean, night and day is the best terms for that for sure. And I just got a kick out of that, though. But, I mean, again, it's so hard to judge that position early on here until they get to playing with guys and all that. But
well, Jerry, I told you months ago that when they signed McCown, I am not at all convinced that our quarterback play this year is going to be at a level that it is a step down from last year. I have every reason to believe that our quarterback play, as long as Josh McCown stays upright and uninjured, that it will be better than it was last year because we had some good, decent, better than average quarterback play at times, and we had half the season probably or better where we had miserable quarterback play. So I'm just hoping we get some consistency. McCown saying and doing all the right things. People that have been watching him in camp have been impressed with him. Accuracy and fluency with the system and confidence and leadership, all those things. We're hearing all the right things about him. And let's face it, we have a very cynical press corps in town it's had that cynicism bred into them over the last 16 seasons. And, they've been basically generally quite positive about what they've seen from McCown. So I haven't seen it. I haven't been there. But I have no reason to believe that they're, polishing this thing up and dressing it up to be better than it actually is. I think people are genuinely impressed with the guy.
Tell you what, one thing that I was interested to note here, even though the attendance has still been strong here, is that the buzz, you talked about that with Manziel, this kind of ties right into this here, is the fan base, I think, is a bit, it's, last year they set records with the attendance for training camp there. I think every day was a new record at the start of training camp, and I believe the overall 14-day record, all of those things were set at the beginning last year. This year, while still high, I think they averaging about 2,900 or so for a practice. Excuse me, I had to cough off the air there, but about 2,900 or so. And I got an email from the Browns. I don't know if other guys out there, fans may have found out, they had capped training camp tickets or whatever, and they only allowed so many people to register. They sent me an email yesterday, which I found the wording quite interesting, that said, after evaluating the first few days of camp, we've discovered that we can accommodate more fans and not sacrifice any of the customer service. So we're opening up, 10,000 more tickets or whatever. Every day there's more tickets open, and they open up another 10,000 for the orange and brown scrimmage. I believe that for the first time in a while, and I think it's a direct result of the buzz that was generated at the beginning of last year, that I think a lot of people now look back on with regret because of the mad atmosphere that just kind of, I think a lot of people look at it as just kind of the beginning of the way last season went, even with the hot start. I found it interesting that even though it's training camp time and fans are flocking, and hey, 3,000 to a practice is not bad either way, but it is less than it was last year. I think some of that is fans just kind of burnt a little bit from the overhype last year and the way it all panned out. But I thought that was interesting that this year the Browns actually just had to announce that they're opening up room for more fans. I don't know if that means that they're trying to add to it, or perhaps the ones that are there, maybe they're not, monetizing it as much. I don't know, but I found that interesting. But it definitely told me that there's a little less demand than there was last year.
Yeah, that might be, although that move might be in response to increased demand, or in other words, they sold all the tickets early. Before camp even started, camp was sold out. So I'm sure they have latecomers now that are just realizing, hey, the Browns are in camp. Can we go? And they and they inquire about it, and they find out that there's no tickets remaining, and maybe the club is, basically saying to themselves, hey, why aren't there tickets remaining? It's not like we're elbow to elbow out here in Berea. Maybe we could fit some more people in. So I'm sure it's probably just maybe just late demand people that didn't get it together to buy tickets in advance, and now are expressing interest in coming out. And so who knows? Last year too, remember that a lot of the buzz was driven by ESPN and other national outlets. They had their satellite trucks out here at camp every day, and there was breathless, news reports every night on SportsCenter about what did Johnny do today. So that drove a lot of it, and that certainly is absent this year, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with the numbers too.
Yeah, I think it's down, looking at the numbers that I've got, about 10 to 15%, though, on pace here from last year's demand, which will probably show you the premium on the Manziel hype last year. Last year, 12 out of 13 training camp practices were 3,000 or better on the attendance, and the total was 43,000. It was the highest since 2000. 12 of 13 passed 3,000 last year. Only 11 passed 3,000 for the 10 years before that put together. This year, of the first 6 or 7 or however many it was, they had 2, which were the 2 weekend crowds, which just barely broke the 3,000 mark. The others are a few hundred below. Again, we're talking about a few hundred fans per practice, but I think that kind of shows you what the premium was focus-wise, hype-wise on Johnny Manziel, because clearly it was at rabid levels there last year. This year, back down a little bit.
Well, you got to remember too, though, Jerry, that they limited the number of tickets that they sold. They put a certain number of tickets available. They sold them all, and so I don't know how you could expect more people than that when you can't get in without a ticket and you sold them all in advance.
Absolutely. No, I get you. But I believe it was the same formula, the same system that they had set up last year. But either way, for you guys that want to go, there are now more tickets that have been opened up. They actually didn't give a total. They did say it was 10,000 tickets for the scrimmage on Friday. So if you wanted to go down to Ohio Stadium, they've opened up 10,000 more tickets there. I think it was 60, so now it's up to 70,000 tickets available for that, and they have opened up an undisclosed amount for the remainder of practices. By the way, I think there's only 5 or 6 open practices remaining. I mean, very quickly, boom, the open portion of training camp will be over with before you know it. They're a week, 10 days away from the first preseason game.
That's right, and a couple other things too about Columbus. I understand that Columbus Ohio State is making a bid to get the entire training camp landed down there on a long-term 5 to 8 year basis. I just read that today. The other interesting thing about going down to Columbus this Friday is that there had to be a special exemption made for Terrell Pryor to appear.
Right.
Because of course he's been banned from campus, and I don't know if Dressel was involved in any of the back and forth to make that happen. He's obviously a friend of the franchise. He's from Berea, and was out at Berea the other day with his orange and brown gear on. I don't know if you saw that stuff, but I imagine that he may have had his involvement in the greasing of the skids for Terrell Pryor to be able to return to Ohio Stadium, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets down there. I imagine it'll be a positive one.
Yeah, it's a shame he's not going to be able to get out there, because I'm sure he was looking forward to that one, and so he's one of the guys not looking to go in this one here. I think they're going to, like we talked earlier, they're going to keep a lot of guys out of that one early on here, and that's fine. This is early in camp. I personally can't wait for the next week or so to get done so that we can at least start seeing some of those games that don't really matter, so we can get closer to the ones that do. But at least we can graduate from talking about shorts and shells to talking about games that don't matter, and then work our way to the ones that do. And we're about
that's right. And in fact, we do have an NFL football game this weekend.
This weekend,
so
the Hall of
hard
Fame,
to believe
baby.
It is upon us, and from here on out, we're going to be playing NFL football.
By the way, speaking of the Hall of Fame, I went with my son. I took him for the first time over the off season. I think we went about a month ago or a month and a half ago. We went up to Canton, and I hadn't been there since the renovation of the place. It was my first time checking it out in years. I don't know. Have you been recently?
I went just last December. I went like the 30th of December, I was there. So yeah, it's very impressive. I had a great time.
I liked it.
It had been probably 15 years or more since I had been there.
My son had a good time. Most definitely enjoyed some of the cool things. Like they've got the interactive exhibits. Like they've got the instant replay exhibit where you go under the thing and you watch the play and they're a little bit tricky when you try to, you make the call and then they let you know if your call was right. And they've got some of the cool things.
There's an awful lot of really good interactive stuff now. I just like going into the actual. The hall itself, where the busts of the players are, and where you can go to those video screens and basically bring up and watch highlights of any player in the Hall of Fame. I spent a lot of time sitting right there.
And not only that, I had fun with my son just walking around and showing him the busts, the actual busts, and that you go from the older ones to the newer ones, and you see how much better they've gotten at making them, and just how detailed and how great those busts are done to where it's great. But you're right, you can hit any of them and watch it. They've got those interactive talking statues there with the real gear on them, which is pretty cool because Jim Brown is one of them and Paul Brown's over there, and they've got the talking artifacts. And then we went during the summer, so they've got the football field out back where they set up they've got markings on the field, and they walk you through, and they'll take you to like the 40-yard line of the opposite side of the field, and it'll say this is where the now the name just blanked out. Come on, from the Saints, the field goal, the record before it just got broken.
Oh, Tom Dempsey.
Dempsey's field goal, and it'll show you, and then they'll have you kick field goals from there just to get an idea for how long that 60-yard field goal is, and then they'll show you like the spot on the field where the immaculate reception was thrown, and then you walk down to the spot where it was caught, and different things like that. My son had a good time with it. It was pretty cool, and they had the theater as well, which I liked because they had the Super Bowl theater where you watch the most recent game.
Right.
So of course it was the last one. My son had a great time, which is good because when my dad took me when I was younger, I didn't have a great time. I thought the Football Hall of Fame was boring when I was a kid, to be honest with you. I mean, we're talking about 25 years ago, but it was definitely not boring to my son. He had a great time walking through it. I was just curious if you had seen it since they did all the upgrades and changes there, because it's a really good.
Yeah, it was
place.
great. They've gotten obviously they move a lot of product out of that gift shop too, where you can buy just about anything.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they
was
really
where
bring the cash register over there.
That was where my son and I went and saw our first look up close at the new jerseys. We were like, let's go in the team shop and go look at the new colors. We walked over like, whatever works for you guys, man. Like I said, I like some combinations.
You're not a big fan of the new uniforms.
I like some combinations better than others. I like the camis that they're wearing at practice, man. I think the brown, orange, and white camouflage jerseys are kind of cool. I don't know that I'd like to see those during a game, but have you seen the pictures of them? I think
I have,
cool.
And I think it's kind of a misnomer to call them camouflage. It's like, somebody wearing one of those, it's not like you're not going to see them coming.
Yeah.
But, anyway, it's kind of taking camouflage to a different level, which means the opposite of camouflage. But those are kind of cool looking. I'm a fan. At this point, we talked about it when they came out. I mean, I'm all about defending tradition, but with this game, all the tradition here.
What tradition? Yeah.
Defending is bad tradition. So, any change would be an improvement.
The great thing to do if you're a Browns fan is to walk your kids through, because here was my favorite thing, is my son realizing how great the Browns have been at times. You get done walking through the Hall of Fame, your son looks at you and goes, man, the Browns won a lot. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. You're absolutely right, son. Now you understand why we're still Browns fans, because yes, they did used to win quite a bit, man. This whole hall is full of Browns stuff. Yes, it is.
Right, absolutely.
Because you take him through everywhere, he's going, man, the Browns, Browns. Oh, you show him the first Browns run, he goes, man, did they ever lose? I'm like, no, they didn't. That's the best part about it, man, is they just didn't lose for about 10 straight years. You couldn't get anybody from Pittsburgh to know that, but I'm like, yeah, we've got more rings than they do, son. You just have to come see it for yourself. Dan Wismar. Hey, anything going on with the Buckeyes quarterbacks, man, since they anything new here?
Not really. There's all kind of, the easiest article to write these days is, 10 reasons why Cardale Jones is going to play quarterback for the Buckeyes. But, no, not a whole lot going on there. I did send you via email the new Sports Illustrated college football cover. So let's hope they don't do for the Buckeyes what they did for the Tribe.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, damn it, Dan, why'd you have to send this to me, man?
That is a regional cover. Apparently there's 3 others. TCU's on one, Notre Dame's on one, and I can't remember who else. I think Mississippi State is on the Southeastern cover, even though they're picked to finish last in the SEC West. But it's that time of year, and Ohio State's number one everywhere you look, and they're going to be number one until they lose a football game. And I think that's going to happen sometime this year because it's just too hard to win them all. Exactly 0 teams went undefeated last year out of 128. So, but no, the only news for the Buckeyes, they lost a recruit, they gained a recruit, and not a whole lot happening. Getting ready to break camp on this coming Monday, the 10th, is when they have their first practice. So, starting that day, we'll be able to have a lot of other real things to talk about instead of speculating about Buckeye stuff.
Sounds good. Next week, we'll talk Browns, we'll talk Buckeyes, we'll talk Tribe. We'll roll on, man. Dan, it was good to catch up with you. And as you said, the first real football, well, it's not real, but the first football game is this weekend. So that lets you know that it has at least started to get real. You and I will start catching back up on Monday.
Okay, Jerry, thanks a lot for having me. We'll see you then.
You got it. My man, Dan Wismar. Wow, super long time. I didn't even realize that Dan and I were chatting for that long. I feel bad, man. Hopefully he doesn't send me a bill for that conversation, guys. Let's take a break and get back and wrap things up. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of the Sports Fix coming up next.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good,
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away.
Hey, boo!
Boo!
The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up. No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date.
No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence.
Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, you guys are rocking with Reggie Germany, former wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills and Ohio State Buckeye. You're rocking with the Sports Fix.
Yeah, it's like a bomb, 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 bomb,
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you here. Thanks once again to my man Dan Wismar from EverybodyHatesCleveland.com for a long, extended conversation today. Catching up. Hell, it's been a week and a half. Dan and I had a lot to get into. Talking some Tribe, talking some Browns here, and we'll do it again next week. Monday, he'll be back with us. We'll talk some Buckeyes as well. Friday, Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com will be in the house. We'll catch up with both of those guys. Can't wait. But thanks again to Dan Wismar. And if you guys like hearing Dan on the show, make sure you check out his articles and everybody else that's a part of EverybodyHatesCleveland.com. Always a great place for your sports blogging and takes and all of that. Jim Pete and those guys got a great thing going. EverybodyHatesCleveland.com. Dan will be back on Monday again. Hey guys, couple of things before we get ready to hit the bricks here. I'm looking ahead. Actually, speaking of looking ahead, a couple of fights to look ahead to coming up. Last night, I was over at my boy's house when we got the call from our girl, Jessica I. Found out about her fight. She has been scheduled. She's got a shot at some redemption now. She's going to get Juliana Pena coming up, going back to Houston. Houston, of course, that's the beginning of Jessica I's UFC run. The last time she was down in Houston, she took care of Sarah Kaufman. She's got to go back to the scene of the crime and begin to rebuild her UFC career here after that loss to Miesha Tate coming up a couple of weeks back on the UFC on Fox that we talked about. She's now got a shot to get herself back up there. We got a contenders match scheduled October 3rd in Houston, UFC 192 pay-per-view, the bantamweight women's bout. Juliana Pena and our girl, Cleveland's own Jessica I. And of course, going to be very big. Pena coming back from she had a knee injury, took her out for over a year. She had a big first round knockout back in April, her first fight back. Of course, Jessica I had herself set up. Had she been able to beat Miesha Tate, she would have been the next challenger. Instead, Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey are going to do the title match thing here coming up, and now Jessica's got to rebuild herself. She's down to 1-2 here in the UFC, and she needs a win for sure to get herself in there. She came into UFC on a 7-fight win streak here, and one of those losses, to be fair, was when she laid out Sarah Kaufman in her debut in Houston, and that fight was overturned when she failed a drug test for positive for marijuana metabolites in her system. So main event on that fight will be a light heavyweight title fight. Gustafsson and Cormier going at it. Daniel Cormier will defend his title against Alexander Gustafsson. That's the main event of UFC 192. Jessica I, Juliana Pena will be on the undercard of that one. And to be honest with you, not that she needs any more pressure, but it's must win for Jessica I, because in all reality, when fighters drop their third fight in the UFC, usually that's when Dana White and the UFC matchmakers start making decisions, and you don't want to see that happen. Jessica I ready to turn things around, and she was ready quick. She took a fight quick. I mean, not a lot of fighters instantly jump back on the horse. Many want to take some time. You'll see 6-8 months before they get back out there. Jessica was like, hey, the quicker the better. Get me back out there, and let's get right back on the horse, right back in the saddle. She's got her shot at Juliana Pena coming up October 3rd in Houston. a part of UFC 192. Speaking of fights signed, Floyd Mayweather, he's got his next fight signed as well. Pretty sure they won't be able to charge $100 for this one, that's for sure. Andre Berto, September 12th at the MGM Grand. And there were some rumors that this would not even be a pay-per-view fight, that this may be actually broadcast on Showtime, but I think common sense got through there with the money that they can make. So Mayweather will be going to tie Rocky Marciano and his 49-0 record. This is the final fight on the 6-fight contract Mayweather signed with Showtime back in 2013, and it'll be his shot against Berto to go out there and tie the record of Rocky Marciano. September 12th coming up there, and like I said, they won't be getting $100 for that one. But you got Mayweather coming up in September, added in October. A lot of people getting ready to get back in the fight game here. I love that, baby. As things continue, you have football, you have Buckeyes football, some fights going on, man, and we continue to hit the busy part of the season. You know, and I'm not trying to. Hey, listen. I'm not trying to look past baseball. I want to go back to the beginning of the show as I wrap things up here. And I felt awkward. I was texting somebody during one of the breaks here. I felt awkward trying to bring Big Bob down from his Indians balloon there earlier, because normally I'm that guy. And, I'm with it. I believe that the Indians can most definitely continue to play better. I believe that they can play 8 games over 500 the rest of the way and get themselves back to 500. But Big Bob wanted me to believe that they were going to play 750 baseball the rest of the way, and I don't think anybody in baseball is playing 750 baseball right now. But the Indians have a lot of work to do to get out of the hole that they've dug themselves in and at least finish this season back where they started at 500. They are 8 games below 500 as we sit today. Another game with the Angels up on tap. This one's a mid-afternoon clash. Salazar taking the mound for the Tribe, 9-6, 3.47 ERA. The lefty, Santiago, out there for the Angels. He's 7-5 with a 2.70 ERA. Angels leading in the wild card. So if you even hold out hopes and aspirations for the Indians to do anything, they do themselves favors by taking care of business here. Then it's back home for the Twins and the Yankees, and 10 games coming up. Home, the place they play almost as well as they do on the road, which means not as well as they do on the road. It's so ass backwards, isn't it? It'd be nice if they change that starting here. Let's pick up the win. Let's end this road trip strong. We'll be back on Friday. We'll talk about this weekend series. Mike Brandenberry, Jonathan Knight in the house. We'll open up the phone lines and talk to you guys and so much more. Same bat time, same bat channel, where else? But live at noon, right here, baby, across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for sticking with us every day. And we'll see you Friday right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Have a great time. Have a great Thursday. Get back here Friday. Let's do the thing. I'll be here. Will you? Of course you will. And we'll be doing the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland. We'll see you Friday.
And I love sliming. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra. Hey.
We rep our city.
Yeah.
Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. We're sick fitted. Hood pass cover any city that we visit. When you're from Cleveland, survival's our must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
You know that I'm from
long nights, cold weather, it ain't nothing pretty. So much hate up in this itty bitty city. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Put your hands up in the air, everybody say yeah, 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 yeah.